Whether it's a massive grid failure or something as simple as a nasty storm, I'm going to show you 8 items that will help you survive when the power is out. All right, everybody, welcome back. So today we're going to talk about 8 items that you would need to survive any kind of grid failure, whether it be from a simple winter storm or a rainstorm or a massive outage that takes half the country down. These items will help you survive, and they're items that people don't normally think of. Now, of course, the supply of food, water, and off-grid cooking appliances is a great start, along with some backup power options like a power station. But there are other items that make surviving a power outage a whole lot more bearable. So I've gone through about 8 items that I thought of, because we had a nasty little monsoon storm here last night, made me think of it, that I think would be helpful during a power outage or complete grid failure. So let's talk about the first one. It's going to be a water pump. Now you'll notice back there, it's a tiny water pump. I use this to rotate my 50-gallon drums. When I pump the water out of them, I use that, and then I use a hose to fill them back up. Of course, you're going to need a bigger one, all right, if you're going to be filtering out a ton of that. But that would help in a small situation if there was some minor flooding. So a lot of rainstorms like we had last night don't just knock out the power, but they often bring flooding and large volumes of standing water that we may not have to be able to move. It's possible during a winter storm that you could be in a flooded basement or crawl space or whatever. So a water pump is really essential, especially if you live in areas like I do that are prone to flooding, or areas like near lakes or creeks. Even a clogged storm drain could cause pools of standing water that could need some redirecting. Any water pump should be fine, gas, diesel, hand-operated. They say not electric. I've read that in a lot of articles, to not use an electric pump. However, I know that electric pump right there will run off a power station. It draws about 600 watts. So that's no problem for me. It'll run for about 5 hours on a decent power station. But gas, diesel, or hand-operated are fine as well. Next item, you'll notice over here, medications, okay? Being prepared means we're ready to go at a moment's notice, all right, and go for at least several weeks. This power outage that you're experiencing could last for a very long time. Now, suppose those medications you need to take regularly or stuff you take over the counter aren't available. The stores run out of backup power. They can't sell you anything more. So I feel you should always have several weeks of prescription medications on hand. Also, over-the-counter meds are essential stuff you take regularly. I'll give you an example. Like we take Tylenol or calamine lotion for cuts, nasal spray if you've got a bad sinus infection, whatever. Not necessarily sinus infection, bad allergies like I get this time of year. Also, too, we have a product here that we do a lot of business with, and that's Jace Medical. And they will give you a full supply of antibiotics prescribed to you by a doctor. And it will come to your house. You won't have to go to a pharmacy to pick it up. You simply take their online questionnaire, get your consultation reviewed by a United States doctor, prescribed in the United States, brought to you, all U.S. made antibiotics, all that stuff comes directly to you. So you're not taking a risk of buying stuff online and not knowing if it's the correct stuff or not. So the middle of a power outage is not the time to go out and buy some children's Advil. And we've seen how hard that is to get lately. It's starting to come back in stock now, but during the RSV and flu and cold season, that children's Tylenol and Advil disappear pretty quick. So always have either also over-the-counter and prescription medications on hand for you. Next up, we're going to talk about cash, all right? We seem to have an unhealthy reliance on credit and debit transactions to buy our daily essentials. But remember, no power means no credit or debit. Now, yes, stores have backup systems, all right, and they will run for a short while. However, a lot of the stores we've seen locally here will kick you out, all right? When the power goes out, they'll kick you out, and they'll wait till the power comes back on. So that's why it's good to have stuff ahead of time. But for the stores that do stay open, they can't run your debit card, okay? So a short-term power outage is no time to dip into your long-term food stores. We get outages here that last maybe an hour, 2 hours. No big deal. But if I'm going to get something and I want to buy something, cash is still king. I advise people not to have huge amounts of cash. I'm not telling you to bring $10,000 home and stuff it in your mattress. But a few $100 will allow you to get a few groceries even when the power's out. Now, don't keep it in a wad of 50s and 100s. Your cash reserve should be made up of smaller bills. And as you can see here, this is a perfect example. I've got a 10, I got some 5s, I got a bunch of singles. Yeah, it's going to be thick and annoying, but you know what? You stick it in a safe, you don't have to worry about it. I keep them in bundles of 100. This one here is just 20s, you know. Simple enough. 20s are pretty common. And if something's $40, you don't want to give them 40 singles, so you keep a few 20s. But 10s, 5s, and 1s are very, very handy. It also doesn't hurt to stockpile a little bit of change. What I've done is I put away my change and I rolled it. So if the worst case scenario comes and I'm out of this cash, I can still bring a roll of quarters for $10 and use it. So it's already pre-rolled. And that's handy, too, because if I need to make change, retailers may not be able to. We saw after the pandemic a lot of the Walmart self-checkout aisles, which I can't stand, but that's a whole nother story, went to cash card only because they couldn't get change. I don't know that if anybody's worked in retail, they know, but you get a change order. Usually a couple times a week. You'll put in an order for maybe $1,000 worth of change. And if that change order can't come in or they don't have enough to fulfill it, you're kind of out of luck. So that's why it's good to stockpile not only cash, but some coins as well. And even having a coin jar takes care of that. Now, next up, hot drinks and a way to prepare them. Okay, most of us start our day with a hot cup of coffee or tea. The problem is we're kind of slaves to modern conveniences. In a lot of cases, coffee comes from a machine or single-use pods. So if you still want your caffeine fix, you're going to have it from a power source other than your modern coffee makers. And an off-grid method, such as a pour-over percolator or a camp stove, works perfectly. See, I got some options back there. I have some instant coffee. I have a little alcohol stove that I made myself. It's a little, tomato sauce can with a little bit of carbon filter on the outside and a cat food can. Pour some alcohol in there, it soaks up, and guess what? You got yourself a alcohol stove, and you can stick it right on top and heat up your metal cup. Always good to have something like that you could just stick on there. I have a burner there. That's a Coleman Exponent multi-fuel stove. I just use the white gas in it, the Coleman fuel. Cup, little pods, individual pods. These are not pods. These are individual tubes of instant coffee. Some instant coffee there. Just a way to make something that you're used to. Remember, one of the tricks of preparedness and survival is to be able to overcome the little annoying inconveniences as well as the big ones. It also helps to have a stove that you can cook your food on. I know most homes these days, everything's electric. Power goes out, you don't have a stove or an oven. So that's something to keep in mind. All right, next up, tarps, tape, staple guns, plywoods, anything that can be used to repair, nails, screws. I have a staple gun over here. I have two examples of tarps, just a cheap Walmart tarp, and it's a smaller one. You'll want a bigger one. A regular camping type tarp, some Gorilla Tape. This stuff is really good. This Gorilla Tape, just be careful with putting it on painted walls and stuff. It will take the paint off, but it sticks. I've even used it to hold on bandages in an emergency. When I didn't have a regular packing tape, I just used it, I put a bandage on and wrapped it around there, and it'll stick on skin very well too. So you got to be careful with it. But a power outage caused by, say, a bad storm can leave holes in your home that need plugging, all right? Heavy-duty tarps can be stapled over broken windows, draped over roof damage, or wrapped around areas where the siding has begun to blown away or ripped off. These can be used to block any kind of drafts you have. When you discover the power outage shows that you have a problem in your home heating system as well. Some cans of spray foam are good too if they're available to plug any gaps you might find. So that's a real simple way to do a quick repair. Remember, you're not looking to fix this long term. And having some wood put away can't hurt either. I do have a little bit, but not enough. I really do need to kind of focus on that myself personally. Also a good idea to make sure that with all those tapes and staple guns and all that, you have some manual tools. Now, I'm as guilty as the next person on an over-reliance of power tools, all right? But it's good to have a good manual option of power tools that I don't need to access grid power with. Yes, I've got solar. Yes, I've got more power stations than I know what to do with. I mean, sometimes I'm literally giving them away. The nature of my business here, doing reviews on stuff, I get a lot of stuff. But it's also good to have basic manual tools. Stuff like a file, a chisel, hammer, basic stuff like that, a drill, a hand drill. And I do have one of those, but it's in the other room. A hand drill, stuff like that, claw hammers, hand saws, all right, buck saws, hand drills, hand planes, stuff that you can use when the power's out. If you do need to do, say, a small roof repair, a temporary kind of fix to keep your home dry. Manual tools, very important. Now, coming from growing up in New York City and basically calling the superintendent every time there was something wrong with my house, I had a steep learning curve. Don't let that scare you. If you haven't used manual tools before, buy one. Go on Amazon and buy a hand drill. Then practice. Go get a piece of wood, drill a bunch of holes, see how it works, see how you like it, buy some drill bits. You got to practice with this stuff before you think you're going to be able to use it. So definitely get yourself some decent hand tools and be ready, okay? All right, behind the cashier is our next item, and that's glow sticks, all right? Headlamps, very handy. Flashlights, of course, very handy. But not a lot of people think of glow sticks. And you can buy the cheap ones at the Dollar Tree. You can get a whole stack of them. They sell them in the kids area there. There's loops and rings and all sorts of stuff. But just a basic, simple glow stick. Something like this. You break it, you open it up, you snap it, you're ready to go, and you got light for a good anywhere from 8 to 12 hours. Okay? Now, they can't be turned off. So once they go out, they're garbage, all right? So you got to use them as a light source. They're very well suited to mark obstacles in your home. If your home is very large and very dark, you can stick this on the back of a couch so everybody knows, hey, there's something there, don't walk into it. But the larger ones, like these guys, which I picked up in Walmart a year or so ago, are very, very handy because these things are bright. And I found that if I'm here, I like to hold it over my head, not in front of my eyes because it will blind me. Just hold it up over your head like that, and you'll walk through and you'll be able to see everything. They're good for anywhere from 8 to 12 hours, depending on the glow stick. They're very, very handy, and they give off a soft glow instead of a nice, nasty, hard, harsh beam. I know if you ever use one of those more powerful flashlights in your house, you're like, geez, it just blinds you. So even if you're not looking at it, just pointing it out, anything over, 2,000 lumens can, you feel like you're burning a hole in your furniture by shining it on it. So it's definitely a good idea, definitely something to think about. A good headlamp. I always like to tell the story of how I was not a believer in headlamps, and this is a Cobb LED, basically that whole strip lights up. I was not a believer in headlamps until I had a power outage one day, and that's how it works. See? And I said, you know what? They've always told me to buy these things, and I got one, and let's put it on and see how it was. How it works. Oh, my goodness. It was so nice to have your hands free and walk around and be able to do something instead of holding a flashlight and working with one hand, and so nice. So definitely get yourself some glow sticks and a decent headlamp. All right, lastly, and it's kind of funny because it's all the way in the back there. Of course, that would be the game that I would bring out. The bunch of board games. Something to kill the boredom, okay? The lack of electricity will shorten the list of entertainment options we've got. You don't have TV, you don't have your video games, can't really do much. If you've got young kids, you know how that can be. And using, say, a generator or an emergency power station to run a DVD player or TV or a gaming console kind of seems a little bit silly. I mean, when you're wasting that power that could be used for something else. So, a board game like that, a deck of cards, any board game you can think of, something your family enjoys to do together, even Monopoly, something as simple as that, can really make the time go by a whole lot smoother, can kill boredom, especially if you've got young kids who are used to being on their phones 24/7, and it's some quality family time, so you might as well use that to get in there and enjoy time with the family. So, preparing for a power outage really isn't all that difficult. Of all the emergencies to get ready for, a basic short-term power outage is probably most likely to occur, be it in the winter or with us, in the winter or summer, because we have our little monsoon season where you get some really heavy rains. The good news is that if you're ready for most emergencies, you're probably already ready for a power outage. Now, last night we didn't lose power, but we could have very easily. I have to commend, as much as we complain about them, the electric company out here. When I first moved here in 2003, a stiff wind would knock the power out for about 4 hours. Now we've gone through some really nasty storms. As a matter of fact, a couple of years ago, we had a windstorm that was literally ripped the roofs off of buildings. Luckily, I was not in the path of it, but literally the end of my street, all those houses up that street, the roofs just looked like a huge cat just ripped the tiles right off. So, it was a nasty storm, and the power stayed on. But it's still inevitable, and we've lost power here last week for a couple hours. I guess a transformer blew, so it's still going to happen. It is the most likely disaster scenario you're going to face. Let's face it, things fail. Transformers blow. We have one section of town where the transformer keeps blowing out, and they can't figure out why. And they finally figured out it was birds and put a guard around the transformer so the birds can't get at it. So it's just some basic ideas. We all think food, water, shelter, all that stuff, but we don't think of things like headlamps or cash sometimes, or hand tools to do repairs, or even a simple alcohol stove that you can make yourself for free out of some cans, a tomato sauce can and a little cat food can. And I did a video on making that, actually. So if you search my videos, you'll find it. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you guys got something out of it. Don't forget, our links are down below. We have our Amazon affiliate store in there. If you don't see anything in the store you like, you just click the link and shop as you normally would. We really do appreciate when you do that. Our freeze-dried wholesalers link. Remember, folks, stuff's getting back in stock. He is working his hardest. I'll tell you, it's funny because I know he's busy, because I used to email him, and within an hour he'd email me back, and sometimes now it's like days before he gets back to me, because basically he's working as crew in his own factory. So they are expanding. They are getting stuff back in stock again. So check them out. My link down there will save you 15%. So do check that out. We have our My Patriot Supply link, and folks, I'm glad to see many people have opted for the 3-month kit this month. The 3-month kit is $200 off. It's under $600 for 3 months worth of food delivered to your door. Perfect Kickstarter for your food preps. It's preparewithiridium.com, preparewithiridium.com on the website. And below that is our Thrive Life freeze-dried food store. Don't forget Thrive. Awesome, clean, healthy freeze-dried food. Anyway, folks, thank you for joining me today. Stay safe and stay prepared.